I get it, you're staring at the endless list of ground testers on Amazon, and every time you think you've found the one that'll finally let you measure resistance without a whole lot of guesswork, another review pops up warning about wonky readings or tiny jaws. You don't want to drop a few $100 on a tool that ends up gathering dust in the garage, and you're also not willing to settle for a cheap meter that can't keep up when you're working on a commercial site. The big question is, does this clamping unit actually deliver the kind of reliability and convenience that makes the investment worth it for a pro or a serious DIYer? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Extech 382357 is built around the idea that you shouldn't have to disconnect a grounding rod just to take a reading. The clamp and jaw, at 0.9 inches, is big enough to slip over most standard rods you'll encounter on a residential job, and the auto-ranging capability means you won't be stuck turning dials trying to find the right scale. When you power it on, it runs a self-calibration routine that takes a few seconds, and then you're ready to slide the jaw onto the rod and get a reading in the 0.03 to 1500 range. In real terms, that covers everything from a freshly driven copper ground to a stubborn, high-resistance soil condition that could cause equipment drift. One of the first practical strengths I noticed is the true RMS measurement for AC leakage current. For electricians who need to verify that a grounding system isn't leaking dangerous current back into the building, the 0.2 mA to 30 A range gives a lot of headroom. In a recent job site, a contractor used the tester to confirm that a newly installed subpanel ground was clean, no stray currents above the 5 mA threshold that the code usually flags. The meter displayed the exact figure without the jitter you sometimes see on cheaper units that only approximate RMS values. The data logging feature is where the Extech starts to feel like a small data logger you'd find in a lab, not just a field meter. You can program up to 116 data points, which is handy when you're doing a series of resistance checks across a large site. Instead of writing down each reading and later transcribing, the unit stores the numbers and lets you scroll through them later. That's a real time saver on jobs where you have to document every grounding rod for a client report. The only drawback is that the memory is fixed. If you need more than 116 points, you have to offload the data and start a new session, which can be a little inconvenient if you're working on a sprawling industrial campus. Now, let's talk about who will actually benefit from this tool. If you're a licensed electrician, a building inspector, or a facilities manager who routinely checks grounding systems, the clamp-in design eliminates the need for a separate test lead and the hassle of disconnecting rods. The auto-range and true RMS features mean you spend less time fiddling and more time getting the job done, and the data logging helps you meet documentation requirements without extra paperwork. On the other hand, if you're a casual homeowner who only occasionally needs to verify a ground for a small solar installation, you might find the price tag and feature set overkill. A basic 2-wire meter would handle a one-off test just fine, and you probably won't need the 116-point log. A subtle weakness shows up when you try to clamp onto very thick or oddly shaped conductors. Think of a massive steel rebar or a non-standard ground plate. The 0.9-inch jaw can't accommodate anything larger, so you'll end up having to use a separate test lead or a different meter. That's not a deal breaker for most users, but it's something to keep in mind if your work often involves oversized grounding hardware. Another point worth noting is the battery life. The unit runs on a single AA, and while the display is dimmed to conserve power, heavy use of the data logging mode can drain it faster than you might expect. Keeping a spare battery on hand is a small habit that prevents you from being caught mid-measurement. From a value perspective, the Extech's price sits in the mid-range for clamp-in testers, but you're paying for features that many competitors skim over. The automatic self-calibration removes the guesswork of manual zeroing, and the true RMS capability ensures that the leakage current readings are accurate even on distorted waveforms, something you'll appreciate when working with variable frequency drives or inverter-based systems. The data logger, while limited to 116 points, still gives you a professional edge in reporting, especially if you're submitting paperwork to an authority having jurisdiction. If you decide this sounds like a match for your toolkit, remember to check the exact model number before you add it to your cart. The Extech 382357 is the version with the clamp and jaw, true RMS, and data logging. There are other Extech meters that omit one or more of those.